Hello everyone, welcome to Emerald's Tech DevOps Mastery Training Program. In today's fast-paced technology world, software development needs constant innovation and agility. That's where DevOps comes into the picture, bridging the gap between development and operations to deliver faster and more efficiently. But mastering DevOps requires the right skills and knowledge. That's where our comprehensive DevOps Mastery training program comes into the picture. Whether you are a student looking to launch your career or a job seeker aiming for DevOps role or a working professional advancement in your career or thinking about switching your domain from any other to DevOps, then DevOps Mastery has something for you. In this intensive DevOps Mastery training program, we will learn about the most important seven pillars of DevOps. First one is server administration. Second one, version control system. Third one, cloud computing. Fourth one, infrastructure as a code. Fifth one, containerization and orchestration. Sixth one, CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous delivery. Seventh one, monitoring and observability. At present moment, we have number of DevOps tools available in the market, but we will be focusing and we will be learning the most widely used DevOps tools. Now, let me explain what are all the DevOps tools that we are going to learn in this DevOps Mastery training program. First one is Linux. At present, the most widely used servers or Linux servers in most of the organizations. In this Linux, we will be covering the architecture of the Linux and we will be learning about the file system and the user management, and also we'll be learning about how we will install and manage the softwares in a particular server. Here we will be learning about most commonly used Linux commands, which are like copy, mkdir, and many more. And also, we will be learning about how we will be install a software and also how we will be host an application into a Linux server. In summary, we will be learning about the practical Linux server administration. Along with, you will be learning about how you will host an application, how you will manage the application, how you will troubleshoot an application and the softwares in a specific Linux server. The first and foremost tool that we are going to cover is Linux administration. In this particular tool, we are going to learn about Linux overview and the architecture and most commonly used Linux commands, then deep understanding about the Linux file systems and user management. After this, how to install and configure softwares, also error troubleshooting, like if there is any issues regarding that particular software, how do we troubleshoot that particular software. After this, deploying and troubleshooting the actual applications into the Linux server, like we can deploy React application or we can deploy a Angular application or Node.js application. How do we install all the dependencies and then how we will make sure that application is up and running. So all these practical things that we are going to learn in this particular Linux administration. Now let's discuss about the next tool that we are going to learn is Git. So Git is a version control system that most of the organizations will use. Here we will be learning about the overview of Git and also the understanding of how Git works. Later, how many ways we will authenticate the Git, like we can authenticate using the HTTPS based mechanism and also use the SSH mechanism. So these authentications that we are going to learn, and then Git basic operations like Git commit, Git add, Git push, Git pull. So how do we use these particular basic Git operations in our day-to-day life? Let us learn about them. After this, we will create the remote repositories in either GitHub or GitLab. We'll create them, and then how do we sync between our local repositories to the remote repositories. After this, Git advanced operations, like how we will resolve the merge conflicts, how we will do the rebase. Advanced concepts also we will learn in this particular training program. Once we learn about the Linux and the version control system of Git, then we will be moving to the AWS, that is cloud computing. First of all, understanding about the cloud computing. What is the advantage of the cloud computing? Why do we move to the cloud computing? What are the some disadvantages of the cloud computing? And what are the different types of cloud models that we will be having? So we will understand deep knowledge about these particular concepts. Later on, we will do the introduction about the AWS cloud. What is the major advantages over the other cloud providers that we have in the current market? Later on, the deep dive into the most commonly used AWS services. We will be learning about VPC, IAM, EC2 instances, the RDS, Route 53, and Certificate Manager, and AWS Code Pipelines. So these are the most commonly used services. Deep dive and do the practical deployments of each and every service in this particular program. Later on, we will build the applications and deploy into the different AWS services. Like we will use the AWS Code Pipelines to build the application and deploy into the specific AWS service. Like it can be a EC2 instance, or it can be a ECS Fargate, or it can be a Elastic Beanstalk. So we will do these practical labs so that we will understand how to utilize each and every service interlinked. Once the code pushed, how do we make sure that it will build and then it will deploy into that particular target service? So these practical labs that we will be learning, and later on we will implement the infrastructure for a three-tier application. It can be a front end, back end, and the database. How do we utilize for front end what particular services, AWS service we will use, and for back end what particular AWS services we will use, and for database obviously we will be having RDS. So how do we make sure that these applications will run together and then our application will be up and running for the end users? So we will do all these practical labs in this particular AWS cloud computing program. After having the deep understanding about AWS cloud services, we will move on to the Terraform. Terraform is an infrastructure provisioning tool. In this particular Terraform course, we will be learning about introduction about Terraform and its workflow, how the Terraform will work, what is the Terraform plan, what is Terraform state. So once we understand about the Terraform and its workflow, then with hands-on sessions on each Terraform core components like modules, resources, variables, and then outputs, we will learn. Then we will be deploying the AWS services with Terraform, like how we will deploy a EC2 instance and how we will be deploying a S3 bucket, or how we will deploy RDS. So we will do the practical sessions on deploying the multiple AWS services using Terraform. Later on, we will create and deploy our own modules, like how what is the importance of the modules, and then how we can have our own modules so that we can reuse for other projects. After that, we will do the advanced topics of the Terraform, like the loops and how you can use the conditional based deployments, some practical deployments that we will be doing with the Terraform. Now let's learn about Ansible. Ansible is an infrastructure management tool which is used to manage the virtual machines. So here we can manage virtual machines on any cloud for the matter. In this particular Ansible program, we will learn about Ansible architecture and what is Ansible, how Ansible will work, what is the master slave configuration. We will have a deep understanding about all these concepts. What are the different components that we will be having in Ansible, like the Ansible playbooks, Ansible roles, Ansible variables, Ansible conditions. All these components we will have a deep understanding and practical knowledge. Later, we will have an labs for writing Ansible playbooks, like how you can write the Ansible playbooks. So what is the syntaxes for them? What are the different keywords that we will be using in Ansible? Later, we will use how we can reutilize the Ansible playbooks, how we can call one playbook in another playbook. So we will learn all these important concepts. Then we will implement the custom roles. Also, we will learn how we can use the existing roles. So we will create our own custom roles and how we can reuse those custom roles, how we can use the existing custom roles which has been written by some Ansible experts. We will have all these understandings, and then we will be having an advanced topics like how you can use the dynamic inventory file, how you can use the conditions, how you can use the loops, how you can use the custom variables, how you can set the artifacts. So these all important concepts about the Ansible we will learn in this particular training program. Once we learned about the infrastructure as a code tools like the Terraform, Ansible, then we will learn about containerization tools. In this DevOps Mastery training program, we will learn about Docker, which is the most widely used containerization platform tool, in the industry. So before we are learning about the Docker, we will learn about the containerization platform. So what is the history of the containerization platforms and what are the advantages over the virtual machines? Later, we will have a deep dive into the Docker architecture and its major components, like what is Docker daemon, what is Docker client, and how they will communicate with each other. Dive about that particular components. Later, we'll have a hands-on sessions on Docker images and Docker containers. So how Docker images we can create a Docker container, and what are the different file systems that they will be having, and what are the different Docker commands to run the Docker container and to list the Docker images, to list the Docker containers, practical knowledge about Docker commands also. Later, we will be implementing the single stage and multi-stage Docker files, how we can build our own custom images, and what are the different steps in it, and what are the different instructions that we will be using in single stage and multi-stage Docker file. What is the advantage over single stage Docker file of the multi-stage Docker file? All these differences, and we will build the images from scratch. Later, we will have hands-on labs for containerizing the multiple applications like Java applications, Python applications, React applications. We will containerize these applications and we will run the containers, and we will see the output. All these practical hands-on sessions you will get in this particular Docker training program. After having a deep practical knowledge about containerization platform, Docker, then we will move on to the containerization orchestration tool, Kubernetes. Kubernetes is used to orchestrate the containers. That means that it will manage the life cycle of the container, like creating a container and deleting a container and updating the container. So all these life cycles will be managed by Kubernetes platform. Let's do Jenkins is a CI/CD tool which is used to implement the CI/CD practices. In this Jenkins, we will first learn about understanding the CI/CD process and stages. In the CI/CD process, we have different stages like build stage, test stage, and deploy stage. We will understand the Jenkins architecture and its components, like how master slave configuration will work. Once we have understand about the architecture, now we will set up the master slave configuration in Jenkins, like how a master can assign the jobs to the slaves, and also how master can itself build the slaves, like we can have an EC2 instance as a slave, or we can have a Docker container as a slave, we can have a Kubernetes pod as a slave. Once we had set up that particular master slave configuration, then we will build the Jenkins pipelines, freestyle job, where we can go to the Jenkins GUI and then we will configure the job, or we have Jenkins pipeline where we can have a Jenkins file, and then with that file the Jenkins will itself create the pipeline, and which is most advanced pipelines that we can create are multiple branch configuration jobs. So different kind of jobs that we will build. Later we will set up a complete CI/CD process for an application. It can be a React application, it can be a Java application, it can be a Python application, or it can be a Node.js application. Committing a code to Git repository, and once we commit the code, how it will take that particular new commit, and then how it will build, and then how it will deploy into the target environment. So here we will also integrate Docker as well as Kubernetes, where we will build the Docker container images, then we will deploy into the Kubernetes using Jenkins. So it would be a fully hands-on practical sessions on how you can implement the complete CI/CD pipeline using the previous DevOps tools, whatever that we have used. We will integrate with Jenkins and we will create a complete CI/CD flow for an application deployment. Elastic Stack means Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. It will monitor our application logs as well as where our application has been hosted, how much CPU has been utilized, how much memory has been utilized, how much disk space is available. All these metrics also we can visualize Elastic Stack tool. So in this Elastic Stack training program, first we will install that complete stack, like how we will install Elasticsearch, what is the minimum requirement for that particular Elastic Stack, and how we will install the Logstash, and how we will install the, make sure that these three will combine together, work together. Elasticsearch CRUD operations, like how you will create an index, and then how you will delete the index, how we can update or modify the index. So all these code operations using the Elasticsearch post API calls, we will see that. Once we understood and learn about that particular code operations, then how we can customize the logs. That means that we will get the logs from the application, but we don't want all the logs. So we need to make sure that we want specific logs that are important for us. So how we will customize or how we will modify the logs. Logstash can be called as Swiss knife. That means that we will trim the junk of logs, and then we will extract the required logs from the particular application. And later we will learn about the Kibana. It's a visualization tool where you can visualize your dashboards, your custom widgets. Everything will be there in that particular Kibana. So there are different types of chart types. We have pie chart, we have heat map, we have different types of widgets. We have how we will create our own widgets and how we will create a dashboard. We will see how we can use the inbuilt dashboards or inbuilt widgets that are already available in Kibana. We will load those inbuilt dashboards and then how we can reutilize them and how we can create our own dashboards. We will see all these operations. Next, how we can install and configure the different types of bits, because bits are the transporters which will transport the logs and metrics from the target servers to the Elasticsearch. So these bits are like health bits or metric bits or file bits. So these are the different types of bits that we are having. How we can install these bits, how we will make sure that they were sending the required logs and metrics from the target server to the Elasticsearch. In summary, Emerald Stack DevOps Mastery Training Program, we are going to learn all the essential and important DevOps tools that are being used in the industry. We are going to do a practical implementing these solutions on top of these DevOps tools. We are going to learn about Linux, how we can manage the servers, how we can install the applications, how we can configure the applications, and then we are going to learn about the Git, like the basic Git operations, and then how you will manage the remote repository and your local repository, and also the Git commands. After that, we are going to learn about the AWS, like the different types of AWS services, how you will leverage those services to host your applications, and what are the different essential, just like VPC, EC2 instance, RDS, and many more services that we are going to learn. And we are going to practically create each and every service, understand the essential need of that particular service. After that, we are going to learn about the infrastructure provisioning using Terraform, and then how you will manage the servers that you have in your particular cloud environment or your on-prem environment, how Ansible will work, and how you will manage the multiple servers using Ansible, how you will write your playbooks, how you will write your custom roles, how you will use the Galaxy roles. So all this we will learn. After that, the most important and most happening tool that we can say, that is containerization tools, where Docker is the most popular tool. So how you will containerize the application, how you will write your own Docker files, how you will run your containers, what are the different operations that you will perform using the Docker containers, the Kubernetes, like container orchestration platform, where this container orchestration platform is used to manage the containers, what are the different types of objects we have, how Kubernetes will work to manage all these containers, what are the objects that we will be using in day-to-day life, like deployment objects, service objects, or daemon set objects, and also how volumes will work. After that, learn about the CI/CD process, what are the different stages, how you will create your own pipelines, how you will create a pipeline using Jenkins file. You will integrate Jenkins with other different tools, like we will integrate Jenkins with Terraform, or we can integrate with Ansible, and then Docker, Kubernetes. Integrate this Jenkins so that it will build and deploy the application to the target environment. Last but not the least, like ELK stack for observability and monitoring will be taken care by the ELK stack, where we will monitor the logs, we will monitor the server metrics, we will monitor the, so we will create the dashboards and widgets. We will learn in practical implementing sessions in this DevOps Mastery training program.